You ever stop and think about how much meaning is actually crammed into the words we use? Like every single day.
Mm-hmm.
It's not just what we're saying, is it? It's the how, the specific phrases, the idioms we pull out, sometimes even just the tone.
Absolutely. Each choice, consciously or not, it carries layers, culture, intention, maybe things we don't even realize we're revealing.
Right. And we swim in this sea of information all the time, articles, news, just chatting. But the real insights, the stuff that makes you feel genuinely clued in, it's
Yeah.
often hidden in how it's all presented, the specific words somebody picked. That's where the gold is, I think.
You're spot on, and that's exactly what we're doing today.
Welcome, everyone, to the Deep Dive. This is your shortcut, custom made for you to get through all that noise and get right to what matters, to being really well informed.
And today we've got something, quite different, really fascinating, I think.
Oh, yeah. What have we got?
We've managed to get our hands on what you might almost call found footage, or maybe more like overheard conversations, all drawn from this very specific suburban world.
Okay, intriguing suburban conversation.
Exactly. The source material is a set of excerpts from a narrative called Intruders on Wisteria Lane. It's this rich slice of life, really.
Sounds juicy, so we're just following the gossip.
Huh. Well, not just that. Our mission today is actually to dissect the language itself, the words, the phrases, how people are actually talking in these scenes.
Ah, okay. So the mission is linguistic deep dive.
Precisely. We want to explore how the language in these clips, the vocabulary, the idioms, the way people phrase things, how it does more than just tell a story.
Right. It reveals character, drives the plot.
It does all that, definitely. But it also reflects these underlying cultural norms, expectations, things that often fly under the radar.
Okay, I see. So by unpacking these language choices,
You, the listener, get this deeper grasp of everyday English, how common phrases work as cultural shortcuts, how subtle word choices convey complex feelings. It's like seeing the cultural fabric itself.
that sounds incredibly useful
Uh-huh.
for anyone wanting to understand communication better,
Yeah.
right? Whether it's at work or just, figuring people out.
Exactly. It provides really valuable insights into the nuances.
And you don't have to look far for examples, do you? Even something like talk about dirty laundry or saying news spread like wildfire.
Yeah.
These phrases instantly paint a picture, don't they? They're packed with shared understanding.
They really are cultural shortcuts, like you said. Knowing them is key to getting the deeper layers of meaning. A great way to sharpen your ear for authentic English.
Okay, I'm hooked. Let's peel back those layers. Where do we start?
Let's start right at the beginning with something probably very familiar to anyone who watches serial TV shows.
Okay.
The opening line. Previously on Desperate Housewives.
Ah, yes. The classic recap opener.
Exactly. And it's more than just a recap, isn't it? It immediately sets a dramatic tone, like the curtain going up on something big.
Yeah, it signals you're jumping into a story already in progress.
Yeah.
There's history, there's baggage.
Precisely. It prepares you, the listener, for a narrative that has depth, continuity, probably a lot of simmering conflicts. It primes you for drama before you even get a single plot point.
It's a really efficient way to manage expectations, isn't it? Gets you in the right headspace immediately.
Absolutely. And that sense of ongoing drama, that feeling you're stepping into a river already flowing, it gets amplified by the narrative voice that follows.
How so?
Well, listen to how events are described. Ultimatums were made, questions were asked, evidence was uncovered.
Okay, yeah. Very impersonal.
That's the key. It's the passive voice. And it's used consistently here. It's a powerful technique because it puts the focus squarely on the action, not the person doing it.
So ultimatums were made. We don't know who made them, but we know it happened, and it's significant.
Exactly. It creates this sense of unfolding drama where things just happen to the characters. Events take center stage, not necessarily the individuals driving them, which can build suspense, make things feel almost inevitable.
That's a really interesting observation. So for you listening, spotting the passive voice isn't just for, grammar tests. It tells you something about how information is being framed.
Definitely. You see it in news reports, official statements, sometimes to distance the speaker, sometimes here to really emphasize the event.
Okay, so speaking of things being brought out into the open, let's really zero in on that phrase we mentioned earlier. Talk about dirty laundry.
Yes, a classic.
Literally, it's just clothes needing a wash. Right.
Yeah.
But idiomatically, it's totally different.
Completely. It means private stuff, embarrassing secrets, family arguments, scandals. Things you definitely wouldn't want made public.
It creates such a strong image, doesn't it? Like literally hanging your stained underwear on the watching line for the whole street to see.
Chuckles. It does. You instantly get that sense of scandal, breached privacy, maybe even humiliation. It's a shortcut to a very specific cultural understanding about public versus private life.
And that cultural aspect is key, isn't it? Airing dirty laundry.
Hugely important. Certainly in American culture and many others, there's often a strong taboo against revealing family secrets or personal failings, especially to outsiders. It's seen as, well, shameful, disloyal even.
Especially in a place like Wisteria Lane, this perfect-looking suburb where appearances are everything.
Exactly. There, the idea of dirty laundry being exposed is even more potent. Reputation is currency. Privacy is fiercely guarded sometimes to the point where hypocrisy thrives behind closed doors.
So when someone says, talk about dirty laundry, it's not just an observation. It's often loaded with judgment, disapproval, shock.
Right. It signals that a powerful social norm has been violated. So for you listening, understanding this idiom gives you a real window into that cultural value placed on discretion, especially in communities where things might not be as harmonious as they seem.
Okay, moving on slightly. The narrator introduces characters like Susan Mayer and Mrs. Frome very efficiently.
Yes, using archetypes.
Like saying, every neighborhood has a woman like Alberta Frome, and every woman like Mrs. Frome has a cat.
It's a shortcut, isn't it? It taps into these shared cultural stereotypes or understandings, this slightly eccentric older lady with her cat, perhaps.
You feel like you already know her, or at least her type. It helps us categorize people quickly, just like we do in real life sometimes.
And this technique continues with Susan Mayer. The narrator keeps repeating that phrase. Where Susan Mayer went, bad luck was sure to follow.
Yeah, poor Susan. It's like bad luck is actually following her around.
That's the personification, right? Treating bad luck as an active entity. And the phrase sure to follow, it creates this sense of inevitability, dramatic irony almost.
You just know something's going to go wrong for her. It builds suspense.
Definitely. It implies this unavoidable link between her and misfortune. Linguistically, it shows how we often give agency to abstract things like luck, shaping how we see people.
And then the actual event, the break-in. The news spread like wildfire. Let's unpack that idiom.
Okay.
Visualize it. Wildfire. What comes to mind? Speed, obviously.
Speed, intensity, maybe destruction.
And uncontrollability,
Right, just rips through a place.
Exactly. So when news spreads like wildfire, it's not just fast, it's pervasive, unstoppable, especially in a close-knit community.
It takes on a life of its own, like gossip often does.
That's the perfect connection. It highlights that uncontrollability. Once a juicy bit of news, especially something alarming like a break-in gets out in a place like Wisteria Lane, it's everywhere. Instantly.
Feeling anxiety, shaping what everyone thinks.
Precisely. It shows how potent rumor and gossip can be. So recognizing spread like wildfire tells you immediately about the intensity and speed of information, or perhaps misinformation, in that community.
Okay, so wildfire news leads to action, or at least a meeting.
The neighborhood watch meeting, yes. Predictable response.
And people are worried. One resident mentions a ruthless local teenage gang that had egged her minivan. Chuckles slightly. Egging. It's such a specific verb, isn't it?
Yeah, throwing eggs at something. It paints a picture of a very particular kind of suburban problem.
It does. Not exactly high crime, but intensely irritating. Petty vandalism, disrespect for property. It's a common grievance in these kinds of settings.
And Officer Thompson's there, giving advice. He talks about patrols possibly seeming like overkill.
Overkill, that's a great everyday vocabulary word. It just means excessive, more than necessary.
So he's acknowledging it might seem extreme, but maybe justified.
Right. It manages expectations while nodding to their fear. Then he reassures them that regular surveillance will deter even the most determined criminal.
Deter. That means discourage, put them off.
Exactly. And notice the alliteration determined criminal. It sounds quite persuasive, doesn't it? Reassuring. He's saying routine patrols will scare off even persistent offenders. Word choice used to build confidence.
Okay. Then after the meeting, we have Susan trying to hand over evidence, the screwdriver she found.
Ah, yes, Susan's evidence.
She says, I tried before, and they laughed at me. Nothing was taken from the house. You could feel her frustration.
Oh, absolutely. It captures that common feeling of being dismissed by bureaucracy, right? When you think something's important, but because it doesn't fit their criteria, like nothing was stolen, you're ignored, undervalued.
In there. So, how does Officer Thompson respond?
His response is linguistically interesting. He says, that was totally unprofessional.
Okay, totally unprofessional. Why is that significant?
It's a key phrase for acknowledging when someone's crossed a line, broken protocol, or just behaved badly in a professional context. It's a formal admission of error.
So he's validating Susan's frustration, basically, taking responsibility for how the police handled it before.
Exactly. He's trying to rebuild trust. For you listening, totally unprofessional is a really useful phrase if you need to apologize for a mistake or inappropriate conduct in a more formal way. Shows you recognize the seriousness.
Good phrase to know. Now, things get a bit more personal, don't they? We start getting into dating territory.
Indeed, the complexities of romantic communication.
Susan's friend asks her, I thought you two were an item. What exactly does an item mean here?
An item, it's informal, very common slang for a couple who are dating or in a romantic relationship. It implies they're recognized as being together, even if it's not super serious yet. Acknowledged, you know?
Okay, got it. But Susan says she's getting a lot of mixed signals from Mike.
Ah, mixed signals. Another brilliant phrase. It means receiving contradictory messages, words, or actions from someone, making it hard to figure out their true feelings.
Like they act interested 1 minute, distant the next.
Exactly. It perfectly captures that confusion and ambiguity, especially early in relationships. You're not sure where you stand. It's a fantastic idiom for expressing uncertainty about intentions.
So true. And then Officer Thompson makes his move on Susan.
Which leads to a masterclass in polite rejection and indirectness.
How does she handle it?
She starts with, "You seem like a really sweet guy in an interesting line of work, but I'm not really available." Classic structure.
Compliment first, then the barrier.
Right. Softens the blow, but sets the boundary clearly. Then, when he pushes a bit, she says she has a sort of boyfriend.
Sort of. That little qualifier does a lot of work.
It really does. Sort of introduces ambiguity, uncertainty. It softens the truth, makes it less definitive than a flat yes or no. It allows her to maintain politeness while keeping him at bay.
And then she tops it off with, it's hard to explain, even to myself.
Which is brilliant. It conveys genuine confusion, maybe, but it also reinforces the boundary. How can he argue with that? It makes it almost impossible for him to push further without seeming insensitive or rude. It's subtle navigation of a tricky social spot.
He really is. And then there's that funny bit with the police radio.
Ah, the 907A in progress.
Yeah. He makes it sound serious, like a hostage situation, but then admits.
Someone's TV was playing too loud. Chuckles.
So 907A is an example of police code, right? Specialized jargon.
Exactly. Efficient for them, cryptic for us. The humor comes from the gap between the dramatic code and the mundane reality.
And then Susan's friend jokes, thank God for the thin blue line.
The thin blue line, that's a really loaded cultural term. It refers to the police as that barrier between social order and chaos, protectors holding back the tide.
But using it for a loud TV call is obviously ironic.
Highly ironic. It pokes gentle fun at the grand idea of the police's role when faced with such a minor issue. Shows how jargon keeps things efficient internally, while these broader cultural terms carry symbolic weight and can be used seriously or humorously.
Okay, let's shift gears now to family dynamics, social climbing, and the clever, sometimes manipulative use of language that goes with it. Lynette wants her twins in that fancy Barcliff Academy.
Yes, the quest for prestige.
She asks her friend Bree for a recommendation, and Bree immediately asks, so you want me to lie?
Straight to the point.
And Lynette's reply is telling.
Yeah, I thought that was understood. What does understood mean there? It's not just about comprehension. No, not at all. In that context, understood implies a shared, unspoken agreement about something maybe a bit shady. A tacit acknowledgement of bending the rules or outright dishonesty.
Like, we both know this isn't strictly ethical, but it's how the game is played, right?
Exactly. It hints at a shared, perhaps uncomfortable reality of navigating these social circles. And Bree's fear, my word won't be good there anymore.
That phrase really highlights how important reputation is, her credibility.
It's everything in those circles. It's social capital. If she lies and gets caught, her influence, her trustworthiness, her word is worthless. Gone. Reputation is currency.
And this plays out when Lynette actually talks to the school official. His language is careful.
Very careful. He says the twins' educational background is a bit more common than we would prefer.
A bit more common. That's a euphemism, right? A polite way of saying something harsh.
Absolutely classic euphemism. It means not elite enough, not from the right background, basically. It reveals those class distinctions embedded in language. Institutions use this veiled language to maintain exclusivity without being overtly offensive or, perhaps, legally discriminatory.
He also calls the identical twins bookends.
which visually describes them, sure, but it can also subtly imply they lack individuality. There's a matching set, maybe decorative rather than distinct people. Tone matters there, of course.
And the terms like must-meet list and observation, they sound positive, but
They mask a rigorous filtering process, don't they? Observation sounds neutral, but it's clearly evaluative. It's formal language hiding a very scrutinizing purpose.
then there's the clash over the twins, secret language. And that might say they bark and growl, but the official tries to spin it.
Right, he reframes it as not so much scary as highly developed. It's a perfect example of using language to manage perception. Putting a positive spin on potentially problematic behavior depends entirely on your agenda.
Fascinating how language can be twisted. Now let's talk about a different kind of family intrusion. Mama Solis arriving unannounced.
Ah, the formidable mother-in-law.
Gabrielle is clearly shocked. What are you doing here? Does Carlos know you're coming? And Mama Solis is just like, no. He likes to be surprised.
That exchange instantly flags up different cultural expectations about family visits, doesn't it?
Totally. For Gabrielle, it's a boundary violation. For Mama Solis, maybe it's just normal family closeness. Showing up uninvited is expected.
Could be. It highlights that friction, and Mama Solis says she didn't come 2,000 miles for small talk?
Small talk. We all know that one. Polite chit-chat about nothing important. Weather, traffic.
Exactly. Superficial conversation. She's signaling immediately, I'm here for something serious. Cut the pleasantries.
And the serious talk gets critical pretty fast.
Very fast. She makes comments like, most women that shop a lot, it's because they don't have anything better to do.
Ouch. That's not just an observation. That's a judgment disguised as one.
Definitely. It reveals a specific, perhaps more traditional viewpoint on women's roles. Shopping equals idleness or lack of purpose, in her view.
And it gets harsher. Children, give your life a purpose. You're so busy taking care of them, you don't have time to wonder if you're happy.
Wow. That's a very strong, opinionated statement. Pitting a traditional view motherhood as ultimate fulfillment against maybe a more modern focus on individual happiness or career, stark contrast.
And then the ultimate passive-aggressive move.
The sarcasm, yes. Excuse my daughter-in-law, she's very fulfilled.
Using a positive word, fulfilled, to mean the absolute opposite, dripping with disdain.
It's masterful passive aggression, conveying criticism sharply without directly stating it. It forces Gabrielle to read between the lines, feel the sting. It's a way to attack while maintaining a veneer of politeness, creating a really toxic dynamic, a linguistic weapon.
Okay, let's wade into some more emotional territory now. Hidden truths, personal struggles, and the language people use to navigate or maybe obscure them. Starting with Susan's dating problems with Mike.
Right, the ongoing saga.
She complains he blew you off.
Oh,
What does that mean exactly? Blew you off.
It's a very common informal idiom. It means someone ignored you, dismissed you, maybe canceled plans rudely without a good explanation, didn't show up, basically treated you like you weren't important.
Conveys that feeling of being disrespected.
Definitely. Then Susan shares her failed strategy. I told him another man asked me out. It was a perfect opportunity for Mike to be jealous, and nothing.
Ah, the jealousy test. A classic dating game tactic.
It is. And her disappointment highlights that cultural idea that jealousy is supposed to be a sign of real interest or possessiveness, indicating someone cares. Its absence here is confusing and disheartening for her.
The friend Bree then gives some practical, maybe cynical advice. It doesn't work if you don't bat your eyes.
Rat your eyes. A specific nonverbal cue, isn't it? That quick fluttering of eyelashes meant to be alluring, coy, part of the flirtation playbook.
And Susan describes her own impulsiveness beautifully, if hyperbolically. A guy just smiles at me 3 times and I'm picking out wedding china.
Proxels. That's a great line. Picking out wedding china, it symbolizes serious commitment, future planning.
So she's exaggerating her tendency to jump way ahead, plan the wedding after just a few smiles.
Exactly. It conveys that emotional impulsiveness, getting carried away very quickly in romantic situations. Very relatable, perhaps.
She calls herself a mess, but Bree says, but that's part of your charm, which is interesting.
It is. That contrast between how we see our own vulnerabilities as a mess and how others might perceive them, perhaps as endearing or authentic.
Then we get to Mike's behavior, his excuse. My life is complicated.
The ultimate vague deflection.
We've all heard that one, right? What function does it serve? linguistically.
It's a polite but firm boundary. It signals, I don't want to talk about it, please don't ask. It avoids specifics while hinting at difficulties. It can elicit sympathy, but also immense frustration if you want clarity.
And Susan definitely feels the frustration. She snaps back, if I wanted to sit around, I could do it on the can.
Whoa. Okay, language shift there. On the can. Very informal, quite crude slang for being on the toilet.
So she's using that deliberately shocking phrase to show what? Extreme annoyance.
Extreme frustration, absolutely. It dismisses his vague excuse as completely useless, insulting even. She's saying she'd rather be doing literally nothing in the most unpleasant way than listen to his non-answers. The shift to crude language signals the depth of her anger and exasperation. She's done with politeness.
Okay, from relationship drama to actual criminal drama. The intruder's confession.
Yes, things get serious.
He says, I screwed up. Another great idiom.
Very common, very informal. Screwed up means made a significant mistake, messed things up badly, usually with negative consequences. Conveys self-blame, regret.
His mistake. I broke into the Froome house and almost got caught. I left something behind with my prints on it, and then the chilling part. The police are running a check, and I'm in the system.
In the system. In this context, it means his fingerprints or other identifying data are in police databases. He has a record, he's traceable.
Which means his anonymity is gone. He's exposed.
Dangerously exposed. That's why he says, I gotta pull up stakes before they come looking for me.
Pull up stakes, like moving a tent, leaving quickly.
Exactly. It's an idiom for packing up and leaving a place suddenly, permanently, usually to escape trouble. Has that slightly old-fashioned feel, but everyone understands it means a hasty departure.
And his accomplice reinforces this. If and when your cover is blown, you disappear.
More jargon there. Cover is blown, straight out of spy or crime stories. Means your hidden identity or secret operation is exposed. And disappear is absolute. Vanish completely.
The stakes are high, and the intruder's reaction pisses me off.
Yeah, raw frustration. Pisses me off is strong, informal, very direct slang for being angry or annoyed. It shows his visceral reaction to his mistake and the danger he's in. No mincing words there. This language paints a picture of a risky world with its own rules and vocabulary.
Meanwhile, Lynette and Tom have their own high-stakes drama, but it's financial. Barcliff Academy requires a $15,000 donation.
Oof. Steep price for entry.
Lynette says they need to scrape together 15 grand. Let's break that down.
Okay, scrape together that idiom means gathering money with great difficulty, maybe from lots of small sources. It implies financial strain, desperation almost.
And grand.
Just common informal slang for $1,000 or pounds. So 15 grand is $15,000. Using grand makes it sound a bit more casual, but scrape together tells you it's a serious challenge for them.
This financial pressure leads to that big argument about sacrifice.
Yes, who has to give up what for the family's ambition?
Lynette argues it's Tom's turn to be the stay-at-home parent. She frames sacrifice almost like a transaction.
She really does. Phrases like, one of us needs to make a living, setting the practical tone. Then, I've made sacrifices. I gave up my career. It's your turn.
It sounds like she's calling in a debt, highlighting the give and take, maybe the scorekeeping in their marriage.
Exactly. She positions her past actions as an investment that now requires his reciprocal sacrifice. And Tom's reaction, I can't be with the kids all day, I'd lose my mind.
Lose my mind. We say that all the time. What does it really express?
It's usually hyperbole, an exaggeration. It means extreme mental distress, frustration, feeling overwhelmed to the point of breaking down or going crazy. Vividly expresses how daunting he finds the prospect.
And Lynette's response is that darkly funny line.
Yes. Let's put them back in me and cook them until they're civilized.
Chuckles. It's shocking, but also kind of relatable parental frustration.
Totally. It's extreme hyperbole born of sheer desperation, using that dark humor to convey just how unmanageable and wild she finds her children and how desperate she is for them to be. Well, less challenging. Captures that parental breaking point perfectly.
Okay, moving into perhaps the deepest, darkest secrets now. Zach's confession to Bree about his past.
A really pivotal, haunting scene.
He sets the scene with these nostalgic Christmas details. Plum pudding, decorations, singing carols. The dog is howling. Everyone singing off-key, making a terrible ruckus.
Those details are so specific, so sensory. They create this vivid picture of a seemingly normal, slightly chaotic, festive family memory.
But that normalcy makes what comes next even more shocking, doesn't it? The contrast.
Absolutely. Grounding the horror in the mundane, the relatable, makes the traumatic revelation hit even harder. It draws you in by setting up this expectation of warmth, then shattering it.
And the shattering moment is his description of cleaning up after his mother's death. I messed up the floor trying to get out the blood. I got a hose and I washed it off. And once it was clean, I felt so much better.
Chilling.
It's deeply disturbing. Psychologically, it reveals this almost ritualistic coping mechanism, doesn't it? Trying to literally wash away the physical evidence of the trauma, hoping to cleanse the emotional pain too.
Like cleaning the blood could somehow clean the memory or the guilt.
Perhaps that's the unconscious hope. It speaks to that desperate human need to impose order, cleanliness in the face of overwhelming chaos and horror. A child's attempt to regain some semblance of control, even if it's just superficial. Makes you wonder how people, especially kids, process unbearable events. And Bree's response is so insightful. She frames his story by saying, "Those are the most interesting ones, the stories that we never tell anyone."
That's almost a meta-commentary on narrative itself, isn't it? It elevates his hidden secret.
Yeah, it implies that our deepest, most defining stories are often the ones kept locked away. Too painful, too shameful.
And by keeping them secret, they gain this weight, this power, making their eventual revelation even more profound. It speaks to our fascination with hidden truths.
And Zach's actual confession is partial, hesitant.
Huh.
I know why my mom killed herself. It was something I did. Something bad.
That vagueness, something bad, is incredibly effective. It hooks you, builds suspense, makes your mind race with possibilities. What could a child do that was so bad?
And his immediate regret, I shouldn't have said anything. If my dad found out, it just screams fear and the burden of that secret.
Absolutely. It shows the crushing weight secrets carry, how they isolate you, fill you with fear, a stark reminder of the psychological toll.
Now let's turn to the final and perhaps most shocking revelation, Mama Solace.
A truly dark turn.
It starts with Gabrielle trying to rationalize her mother-in-law's shoplifting, dismissing it as confusion due to age. At some point, older people start to get confused. She probably thought she paid for it.
It's a common way to handle uncomfortable behavior in older relatives, isn't it? Patronizing, perhaps, but it avoids confronting a potentially uglier truth, attributing it to cognitive decline instead of intent.
But Mama Solace isn't having any of that. She demolishes that rationalization.
Utterly. With her own confession about her husband's abuse. Diego Solis came home drunk. He beat my Carlos. Something inside me snapped.
Something inside me snapped. That idiom is so powerful. What does it convey?
It means reaching an absolute breaking point, a sudden, decisive psychological shift, often unexpected, where you just can't take it anymore and react drastically. It's just immense pressure building up over time, then suddenly releasing.
And then she justifies her subsequent terrible actions using religious language.
Which is fascinating and terrifying. God, in his infinite wisdom, gave me a reason to live. God gives you the tools to your salvation.
She's reframing murder as divinely inspired.
In her mind, yes. It's a chilling example of how people can rationalize extreme acts by embedding them in a personal, moral, or religious framework. It allows her to see herself not as a criminal, but as someone fulfilling a higher purpose, however twisted that seems to us.
And her final line, just devastating. All mothers know they have to protect their children, but some of us take our job more seriously than others.
That redefines protection in the most extreme way possible, doesn't it? To include murder.
It's stark. Absolutely. What does that imply about the lengths a parent might go to?
It suggests a mindset where the ends justify any means, where maternal protection becomes this all-consuming, potentially monstrous force. It takes a universal concept of mother's love and twists it into something deeply disturbing, forcing you to confront the darkest potential within devotion. It's language used to justify the unthinkable. #outro.
Wow. What an intense journey through the language of Wisteria Lane, from that very first previously on,
Right
up to Mama Solace's chilling final words.
It really covers a huge range, doesn't it?
It does. And this whole deep dive, it's really shown how language does so much more than just tell a story. It shapes how we see everything. The events, the people, it reflects culture, reveals hidden motives.
We've seen how everyday idioms, simple turns of phrase, are packed with meaning, with cultural assumptions, with emotional weight. Linguistic shorthand, really.
And that connects directly to that final reflection in the source material, doesn't it? About intruders.
Yes, that poignant line. People, by their very nature, are always on the lookout for intruders. But the most troubling of all will be the ones who stand on the outside looking in, the ones we never truly get to know.
How does that tie back to language?
Well, language can be our window in, right? It lets us connect, understand. But if we don't grasp the full context, the cultural nuances, the personal history behind the word's language can also be a barrier. It keeps us up on the outside looking in.
Making us miss the hidden meanings.
Exactly. Which leads to that question for you, listening right now. How much might you be missing in your own life, in conversations and things you read or watch, if you're not tuning into those finer linguistic details? The idioms, the euphemisms, the subtle choices.
That's really the big takeaway, isn't it? How can paying closer attention to the specific words people choose, the way narratives are constructed, the cultural baggage idioms carry, how can that make you more perceptive, more truly well-informed?
It's about noticing those subtle clues in your own interactions, in the media you consume. It's a skill.
A skill that genuinely unlocks a deeper level of understanding, I think, in everything.
Absolutely.
Well, thank you for joining us on this fascinating deep dive today. Keep that curiosity sharp. Keep listening closely to the world around you.
And we'll talk to you next time.